Today I want to talk about one of my favorite Greek words. It's a word I've used frequently in my writing and my teaching, but it's one that I think we need to spend some time considering kind of frequently. We have a tendency to forget about how important it is. And the word I want to talk about is telos. Telos is the Greek word that means end, but it doesn't only mean end. There's another word for eschaton in Greek, which means the end of something, as in final, that's it, we're done with it. But telos has the sense of end as in goal or target or the thing for which we're striving. The end of a journey perhaps would be the telos of a journey, or the goal that we have, the end of a project would be the telos of the project. So telos is a great word. It really ties nicely to one of Aristotle's four causes. Aristotle believed there were four things you need to know about anything or any person to really determine what that thing is really all about. So he talked about the material, the efficient, the formal, and the final cause. And the final cause gets to the idea of the telos. In other words, what is a thing for? So when we think about human beings and people, and we all fall in that category, our telos is a big deal. Because if you don't know the telos of a thing, you really don't understand the thing. And more importantly, especially from our human standpoint in the lives we live, if you don't understand the telos of your life, it's really hard to know what decisions to make or how to do things along the way. Are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you fulfilling your purpose? Are you achieving what you've been given to do? Are you accomplishing the telos that is yours? And so this is a big deal question. And everybody, I believe, has to kind of come to terms with this. What's the point? And that's really what we're getting at, you see. Telos is getting to the question of what's the point? What's the point of my life? What's the point of my existence? What's the point of my being? So you need to know the final cause, the telos of a thing, to be able to really determine what it is and how it's supposed to function, and if it's doing its function well. So now you begin to see the ethical side of a telos. You can make ethical judgments based on whether or not a thing is working toward its telos or achieving its telos. If a car is doing what it's supposed to do, getting you from point A to B in a comfortable, reliable, safe way, it has achieved its telos. A bad car isn't reliable or isn't economic or doesn't do its job well. It's a bad car because it doesn't achieve its telos. We make the same kinds of judgments about people. A bad person doesn't achieve its telos or his or her telos. So what's the point? Now, I think it's helpful to think in a big kind of grand scale about the ultimate telos of a person or of an individual being, but we can also think about the telos of humanity in general. And that's one of the things I was trying to do in my book, Day 7, is thinking through what does it mean to be human? What's the point of our human lives? And I would say that kind of boils down to, in a quick answer, we are to honor God, our Creator, with our living. And we do that by receiving the grace that He gives and living in the fullness of His forgiveness and His plans for us that will be accomplished at the last day of resurrection, being what God created us to be. So we honor Him by receiving the grace He gives to us, especially in Jesus Christ through His death and resurrection. We receive what God gives. And that's how we honor God. That's part of my telos, is to receive and live in a right relationship with God. But then the other part of my telos, of every human, I would argue, is to do what God put us here to do, which is to serve those around us, to serve the creation. This gets back to the very idea of man being created for the sake of the creation, to care for the garden. That's the human telos, to live lives in tune with God and in tune with those around us. To live in a sense with an eschatological understanding where we're going for the end of all things, but also living very purposefully now, knowing that I'm here to use my life to serve those around me. So that's the ultimate telos. But then we can each also think about our own lives and the individual teloi, or the teloses, if we want to kind of slaughter the Greek and put it into English, the different kind of goals that I have in my own life, and those tie to the vocations that God has given to us. The particular tasks, the peculiar responsibilities, the vocations we have, and those are as numerable as we are. So we have particular vocations as a child, a son or a daughter, or as maybe a husband or wife, or a father or a grandfather, as a co-worker, as a student, as a teacher, as an employer, as an employee. In all of the different places that God has put you in your life, you have a particular telos that goes with that vocation. And I think it's also often very helpful to stop and back up a minute every once in a while and just think, what is this vocation I've been given? And what is the telos of this vocation? What am I here to do? So for example, if I'm a student and I'm a student at the seminary, what's my telos? Well, I want to get a Master of Divinity. I want to graduate from the seminary and complete my degree. Okay, maybe. That's part of it. But I think there's a greater telos. The greater telos of a seminary education is I want to be better equipped to go and serve the church, primarily probably as a pastor or maybe as some other servant in the church, using that degree to be able to better serve those around me. So my real telos is tying into my ultimate telos of being a better servant to those around me. But the more immediate telos of get my degree done and learn the things I need to learn helps me as a student to think about, how do I prioritize? What's going on? How do I sort things out? What am I trying to accomplish? This also applies into things like families. So a parent has a telos. What's the telos of a parent? Well, it's tied to that child. And so I would argue, and I've done this in other places, but I'll say it again, that a parent has two clear aspects of the telos he has for his child. He wants that child, as a Christian, to grow up knowing God's truth and to live in a right relationship with God, receiving God's grace. Again, the ultimate telos, receiving God's grace, living in a right relationship with God, our Creator, to have salvation, to put it another way. That's one critically important telos, or one aspect of the telos. The other aspect is, I want that child of mine to grow up serving well those around him or her. I want her to be a great woman. I want him to be a great man who serves well, who has character, who is giving himself, using the gifts that he's been giving, using the talents that she has to be able to serve well those around me. I want my child to be a great citizen of the world and a great child of God in service to those around them. That's critically important. Now, if those two things are the telos for me as a parent, that's going to give me a lot of direction and a lot of help as I'm sorting out the way I live my life now, making choices. And I see a lot of families, frankly, that get really kind of caught up in the busyness of life and doing all these different activities for their children because they should, because that's what others are doing, or that's just the expectation. And they don't often stop to say, wait a minute, what's the point here? What am I trying to accomplish? And if the goal is to have a child at 18, 22, 24, 32 years old, living their life in tune with God and in service to others, you need to think now when the child is 3 or 5 or 8, am I doing those things now and allowing the things into my child's life that are going to help him to achieve those two aspects of the one telos I have, that they follow Christ and that they serve those around them well with great character. And if you have that goal in mind, it helps you to kind of cut through the junk. Does my child need to be involved in all these activities that fracture our family, that cut into family time, that destroy our meal time, that don't let us function as a family where we actually cultivate character? You're probably making that the best choice of your time. And if you're doing good things like lots of activities so my child is well-rounded, stop. A well-rounded child who has all these experiences in all these kinds of different things, whether it's sports or music or activities or whatever their interests might be or whatever the world is saying, your child should be doing all these things, you need to stop and say, whoa, wait a minute. What is it that I need to do to achieve the telos I have for this child? And a key part of being a parent then is knowing that some of these activities aren't actually helping toward that end. And I need to say no to those things and maybe even tell my child, no, you're not going to go to that party, or you're not going to be part of this activity, or you're not going to be part of this select team because it cuts into other things that are important in our life, like our time at church, our time on Wednesday night discipleship time, catechesis things. Maybe it cuts into our family plans that we have, or the family schedule that we have, where we just have these times built in to be together as a family. And because those activities cut into those, we're not going to do them. Now, other times you might say, this activity is so critical to my child's formation and them using their talents well that we'll make this work. Those are the kind of choices you sort out. But you need to be careful that you're not just kind of going with the flow of the American or whatever culture you're living in kind of world that just sucks you along and pulls you along as this is what good parents do. Stop and think. What is the telos I have? Is this activity, is this event going to be helping that, encouraging that, forming that, making that happen, or actually getting in the way? Corporations function with a mission statement. Why? Because it gives clarity to what they do, and everybody should know that statement and buy into it, and then it helps all the different workers make decisions. Should I do this or that? Well, does it help the mission? This is the kind of clarity you need to have as a parent. Good corporations, the good companies that function well, never lose track of their mission. Successful parenting, good Christian parents never lose track of their telos. What are we trying to accomplish? What is the goal we have? What's our mission as parents and as our family? Don't lose track of your telos. Whatever your vocation, think about it. What is the thing I'm trying to do here? Whether I'm a student or an employer or in my family, whatever it is, what's the thing I'm trying to accomplish? Be clear on what it is you're striving to do, which lines up with God's ultimate plan, and then those kind of detailed vocational teloses will start to become much better focused, and you'll be able to accomplish the things you need to do, and you'll have the clarity you're looking for on your day-to-day decisions. This activity, that activity, how does it fit with the telos? You kind of sort it out. If they both fit, go for it. But always be thinking, what's the goal I have in mind? What am I trying to accomplish here? So, embrace that awesome word, telos, and think hard about the telos of your own life, the telos of the vocations that you have of each one of those, and then how they fit together and what you're doing to accomplish what God has given you to do according to your telos.